The attainment by the Gambia of 25 years of existence as the sovereign independent state in full control of her own destiny and fortunes was the occasion for much jubilation and festivity throughout the country in February 1990. It was an event of particular significance and a great source of pride and satisfaction for President Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, first head of government and then head of state for the entire period of the Gambia's existence as an independent entity. President Jawara and his jubilating fellow countrymen and women could take pride in the fact that the Gambia had confounded all the skeptics who, back in 1965, when the Gambia chose the path to independence, doubted the viability of a small nation not endowed with natural resources. The skeptics had not reckoned with the resourcefulness and natural resilience of the Gambian people and their government, qualities which have seen the Gambia through a quarter century of independent existence and earned her the respect and friendship of all nations. President Jawara, accompanied by his wife, Lady Njeme Jawara, and his entire cabinet, was at Yundum International Airport on the morning of 17 February 1990 to welcome to the Gambia His Excellency General Ibrahim Babangida, President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of Nigeria, who was accompanied by his wife, Madam Mariam Babangida, and their baby daughter Halima, the Minister for Special Duties, Hamza Abdullahi, and the Minister of State for External Affairs, Mr. Eyoma Ita Eyoma. Before leaving Yundum International Airport for Banjul, President Babangida was introduced by President Jawara to the Speaker of the Gambia's House of Representatives and to ministers of the Gambia government. Huge crowds lined the route to Makati Square in Banjul, where the welcoming ceremonies for the Nigerian head of state were scheduled to take place. Soon, President Jawara and his distinguished guest, President Babangida, arrived at Makati Square to an enthusiastic welcome.
Excellency, Honorable Mounted by Charlie Committee, Force Battalion, four officers, 2 officers,
President Ibrahim Babangida was invited to inspect a detachment of the Gambia Army and then met members of the diplomatic corps. President Jawara then delivered his address of welcome.
Mr. President and Madam Babangida, Your Excellency the Vice President, the Honorable Speaker, my Lord Chief Justice, Honorable Ministers, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to welcome in our midst, on behalf of the government and people of the Gambia, one of Africa's illustrious sons, our very distinguished and esteemed guest, His Excellency General Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida. President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, and his charming wife, Madam Mariam Babangida, and an unexpected but very welcome guest, Halima Babangida, Miss Halima Babangida. Mr. President, we are very pleased and indeed feel very much gratified that in spite of your very tight schedule and the onerous but noble tasks that attend you at home, you have accepted our invitation to join us in celebrations marking the silver jubilee of our accession to sovereign nationhood. This is a clear testimony to and a reflection of the special relations between the Federal Republic of Nigeria and the Gambia. The relations between our two countries are deeply rooted in our shared historical experience and common cultural traditions, and through the similarity of our governmental institutions and administrative procedures, these relations have resulted in meaningful cooperation for the well-being of the peoples of our two countries. Our governments and peoples also share ideals: a respect for human rights, a respect for law and order, and for the democratic rights of the individual. Indeed, the genuine feeling of warmth and solidarity that surrounds our bilateral relations attests to the long-standing bonds of friendship that bind our two peoples. This relationship is based on a spirit of fraternal cooperation and is nurtured by our common desire to achieve progress through peace, respect for human rights, and justice. Your visit on the auspicious occasion of our Silver Jubilee celebrations is therefore a singular honor to all Gambians, and will afford us a chance to discuss and exchange views on matters of common interest to our two countries, with a view to strengthening and consolidating these fraternal and special relations that bind our two countries. Mr. President, I am sure you would have observed in the short time that you have been here the warmth and spontaneity of the welcome accorded to you and your wife and delegation by the Gambian population. This genuine welcome can only be attributed to the important leadership role that the Federal Republic of Nigeria has always played in inter-African affairs. Since independence, Nigeria has developed an undeniable and well-deserved reputation as an economic and political force to be reckoned with both in Africa and beyond. The pivotal role of Nigeria in the liberation of Southern Africa from the shackles of colonialism and racism has won our admiration. I can recall with pride and admiration the indispensable contributions which our great country made in the struggle for the independence of Zimbabwe and Angola, and the determined stand of the Federal Republic of Nigeria in the fight against the odious system of apartheid, now on the verge, we hope, of crumbling. The recent package of measures announced by the South African President, including the unbanning of the African National Congress and the release of Nelson Mandela and other political prisoners, is a clear indication that the sanctions and pressures applied against South African apartheid regime have yielded positive results, however limited in the struggle against racism in South Africa. That the apartheid regime is now willing to offer unprecedented concessions owes in no small measure to the unrelenting pressures that your country, as chairman of the United Nations Special Committee on Apartheid, has brought to bear against it. Despite these concessions, laudable as they may be, there is need to intensify the campaign against apartheid and to maintain the pressure for the total eradication of apartheid. Nigeria's continuing economic and technical assistance to the frontline states to defend and consolidate their independence is very much appreciated by us all. Furthermore, the efforts that our country has deployed in finding African solutions to African problems have been laudable, and I have no doubt these efforts would be intensified with a view to securing peaceful resolutions of conflict among African states. We in the Gambia support such a policy approach and are prepared to work with all countries, as we have done in the past, to find a peaceful solution to problems that have suddenly cropped up in our own sub-region. Mr. President, your country's deep respect for African traditions and value of tolerance, understanding and peace, coupled with your concern to preserve the richness and diversity of your cultural heritage, have earned Nigeria a place of pride in Africa. That is why the Gambian people are keenly observing with considerable measure of pride and satisfaction the gallant efforts you are making to return Nigeria to the path of stable, durable, and resilient civilian rule. We have no doubt that under your able and enlightened leadership, your country's road towards this very important goal will be crowned with success. The government and the people of the Gambia join me in prayers for a smooth and orderly transition to so noble an objective. Mr. President, it is pertinent to point out that despite the economic problems that Nigeria, like other developing countries, is faced with, your country has continued to provide valuable assistance to other African countries. At the bilateral level, I am pleased that the scope of economic and technical cooperation between our two countries has widened considerably over the years. We are essentially thankful for the assistance that the Federal Republic of Nigeria continues to render to us under the Agreement on Economic, Scientific, and Technical Cooperation signed between our two countries. In particular, we appreciate your government's assistance in augmenting our scarce manpower resources in the medical, security, and judicial administration sectors. Your schools and universities have been an invaluable training ground for a significant number of Gambian public servants. Mr. President, as regards sub-regional cooperation, I bear testimony to the vital role that the Federal Republic of Nigeria is playing to ensure the success and survival of the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, and in this regard, I wish to express my profound gratitude to you personally and to your government for the unflinching support that made my tenure of office as chairman of the ECOWAS Authority relatively easy. Mr. President, one of the most important ECOWAS cooperation programs that ought to receive our urgent attention as a support measure for the development and expansion of inter-community trade is the free movement of persons. If ECOWAS is about the integration of the economies of our sub-region, then by definition, we must start with the integration of our citizens. Having said that, I should hasten to add that our community is making steady progress, judging by the number of protocols and conventions that have been ratified and the gradual payment of arrears of contributions, always a sore point, despite the enormous financial difficulties facing the member states. Much remains to be done to perfect our organization. I am convinced, however, that through understanding and solidarity in implementing the decisions to which we have committed ourselves, our regional organization will attain that level of development that will enable us to meet the challenges of the future, a future that will become increasingly characterized by regional economic groupings the world over. We owe it to posterity to ensure that the West African region does not lag behind in this global trend. Mr. President, your visit to the Gambia gives us immense pleasure. As we join us in celebrating the 25th anniversary of our national independence, I would like you to feel very much at home. We sincerely wish that we could keep you and your charming wife, Madam Mariam Babangida, in the Gambia for a little while longer. Long live the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Long live Nigeria-Gambia relations. Long live the Economic Community of West African States. Long live African unity.
President Ibrahim Babangida then rose to make a response to Sir Dawda's speech.
Your Excellency, Sir Dawda Kairaba Jawara, President of the Republic of Gambia, Your Excellency Lady Jawara, Your Excellency, the Vice President, Honorable Speaker of the House of Representatives, my Lord, the Chief Justice, Your Excellencies, members of the Diplomatic Corps, distinguished guests, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it is a source of joy and pleasure to me, and indeed a great honor to my country, that I have been invited by Your Excellency to be the special guest of honor at the 25th Independence Anniversary of your country. I'm deeply touched by the kind and generous sentiments you have expressed about me and my country. Mr. President, the happy faces of thousands of your countrymen and women who lined the routes and spontaneously gave me and my entourage such a rousing welcome have left lasting impression on me. I thank you most sincerely and the brotherly people of the Gambia for their warmth and hospitality. Permit me, dear brother, to acknowledge the contributions you have made to your country and to Africa. In your 2.5 decades of the leadership of the Gambia, you have given your people peace and stability. You have also struggled tirelessly to achieve a better life for your people. Indeed, your profound devotion to your people and the humane style of your leadership is exemplary. This visit, coming on the 25th anniversary of your country's independence, is yet another affirmation of the excellent relationships between Nigeria and the Gambia. Two countries with warm, memorable, and rewarding historical ties. The ties of history and culture apart, our geographical position has imposed on us the necessity for cooperation. Situated as we are in West Africa, we cannot but join hands to develop our region and our continent. Mr. President, we in Nigeria have watched with admiration the tremendous efforts you have made to improve the quality of life of your citizens and to nurture the ideals of democracy. We are highly impressed by your commitment to the respect for human rights, which you have consistently championed. It is no accident that the headquarters of the Organization of African Unity Human Rights and People's Rights Commission is located in your beautiful capital. On our part, we share the ideals of democracy and national development in peace and security. Accordingly, we are leaving no stone unturned in our determination to return to the civilian rule in 1992. In this regard, we are doing everything to nurture democracy from the grassroots, and the journey thus far has been rewarding and promising. It is our ambition, therefore, that by the time we return the country to civil administration in 1992, we would have laid an indestructible foundation for participatory democracy, social justice, and sustainable growth. Mr. President, we have noted with immense satisfaction the growing bonds of fraternal relations and fruitful cooperation between Nigeria and the Gambia at all levels. In particular, we wish to express justifiable pride at the growing links between our two peoples, which date back to many centuries. Today, scores of Nigerians live peacefully in the Gambia among their Gambian brethren. Similarly, scores of Gambians are to be found in Nigeria going about their lawful pursuits. This fact is a source of satisfaction for you and me, Mr. President. We have devoted our resources and energies to the promotion of the goals of ECOWAS. The provision of free movement of persons and goods and the right of residence are cardinal points in the Treaty of ECOWAS and its protocol. The examples set by our two countries and peoples in this respect is a vibrant testimony to your personal endeavors, foresight, and commitment to ECOWAS, which you will have the opportunity to host shortly. We keenly look forward to your assumption once more of the leadership of the sub-regional organization, which you previously led with characteristic dynamism and resourcefulness. Permit me to say, Mr. President, that your tenure of the chairmanship of the sub-regional organization was at a time when the region is nearly overwhelmed by a spate of regrettable conflicts amongst member states. Together with your peers, already seized with these unhappy developments, your wise counsel, your natural predisposition to peaceful methods had been an asset in the resolution of those conflicts. We should therefore collectively prevail on our colleagues in Mauritania and Senegal, Liberia and Cote d'Ivoire to seek amicable solutions to their conflicts within the provisions of the Charter of our continental organization. Mr. President, our individual efforts to solve the multifarious problems besetting our two countries, though in the right direction, still fall short of actions needed to rid Africa of poverty and increase in marginalization. This is to say, Mr. President, that African nations can no longer ignore the imperatives of continental economic integration. This is Africa's only option if we must rise to the challenges posed by the evolving supranational Western Europe of 1992. Nor can we ignore the tide of sweeping through Eastern Europe, which augurs the possibility of a formidable and united Europe. Unless we bury our differences and collectively pursue the continental goals of economic union, the wide gap currently existing between our continent and the developed world will only widen further. As we strive to find a solution to the unfolding scenario that threatens to marginalize Africa, we must not relent in our political goal of liberating every inch of African soil from the shackles of apartheid and racial domination. Now, on the threshold of Namibia's independence, our vigilance must be heightened. More than ever before, we should work together to alert our genuine friends to the real possibility of being taken for a ride. There is no room for complacency in this matter, and the authorities in Southern Africa must be made fully aware of our earnest commitment to the total eradication of apartheid. A few days ago, the regime released Mr. Mandela. This is welcome. We urge that Mr. de Klerk frees the remaining political prisoners, remove the garrisons in African townships, and the state of emergency lifted. For as long as these demands are not met, we in Nigeria will consider all weapons used against the regime legitimate. Mr. President, our beloved continent is embattled. Practically all regions of Africa are embroiled in a conflict or another. The African tradition of dialogue and amicable solution of quarrels with the family was hardly being tried. In our view, the wisdom of our elders, as enshrined in the Charter of the Organization of African Unity, should be allowed to take roots in the resolution of the numerous conflicts. whether the conflict be in Angola, Mozambique, Sudan, Ethiopia, or Somalia. We earnestly appeal to the numerous external forces who may like to settle scores by proxy in these countries to give us a chance in Africa to resolve our problems. On the international plane, we welcome the crumbling of the ideological wall that has for decades fueled unhealthy rivalry and numerous proxy wars at the expense of the developing world. It is our sincere hope that in those regions where citizens are still shooting at one another, states in conflict would be given a chance to resolve their differences without external intervention. We also sincerely hope that the vast resources invested in the buildup of arsenals will now be released and turned toward the campaign against hunger, disease, and human misery. In this way, we will be creating a better world for ourselves and generations yet unborn. Mr. President, may I once again thank you most sincerely for the very warm welcome you have accorded me and my entourage. I'm deeply moved by this wonderful, spontaneous, and colorful display of affection for my country. I am confident that my present visit will further strengthen the excellent and fraternal relations which so happily exist between our two countries and our peoples. Our visit is short, but it is long enough for us, from what we have seen so far, to have a most rewarding and enjoyable stay. Long live the relationships between the Gambia and the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Long live ECOWAS. Long live Organization of African Unity. I thank you.
Later that evening, His Excellency the Vice President of the Gambia, Mr. Bakari Dabo, and Mrs. Mbari Dabo, accompanied by Mrs. Louise Njai, Minister of Health, the Environment, Labor and Social Welfare, was at the airport once again to welcome another distinguished guest to the Gambia Silver Jubilee celebrations. Her Royal Highness the Princess Royal, daughter of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II of the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, was making her second visit to the Gambia. On Saturday evening, Guests began arriving for a reception given by His Excellency President Jawara on the grounds of State House in Banjul.